Good morning. My name is Gord Perks. I'm the chair of the Toronto East York Community Council. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I'd like to now call meeting 25 to order. Welcome, everybody. Today's meeting is being held with members of council participating both in person and by video conference. City staff are also connecting to the meeting by video conference. As City Hall remains closed, the public continue to participate electronically and can watch the meeting streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. I ask everyone for their patience with any delays or technical issues. The clerk's staff have connected all registered speakers to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Toronto East York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Clerk's IT staff will also be available to assist members with their devices. I would like to remind staff to keep their microphones muted and their videos turned off unless they need to answer questions or speak to the committee. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate and vote on items. For those members who are joining us remotely, please keep your microphones muted unless you wish to question staff or speak to an item, and ensure that your video is turned on. As part of each item, I will ask members to raise their hand or unmute their microphones if they wish to speak or question staff. I will then create a speakers list and will call on members when it is their turn to speak. When voting on an item or a motion, I ask that members ensure that they turn on their video if applicable and raise their hands to indicate their vote. Members, I want to remind you that you must submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at teycc@toronto.ca to help with motions. If there are any visiting members of council attending the meeting today, I encourage you to turn on your videos so that I know you are present and can give you the opportunity to ask questions of staff or to speak. This will also assist the clerk's staff to record the attendance for the meeting. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Members, are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none. Can I have a motion to confirm the minutes from the meeting of April 21st, 2021? Councillor Bradford. All those in favour? Opposed? That carried. Thank you. We have 50-odd items on the agenda for today's meeting. We'll begin the agenda run-through with item TE 25.14, appointments to BIA Boards of Management. I have a motion to adopt it. Councillor Cressy. All those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.15, 1600 King Street West zoning amendment application preliminary report. I have no deputants. Councillor Cressy.
I'll move the staff recommendations. Thank you.
All those in favour? Opposed? Carried. We have deputants on item 16. So we'll go to 17, 25.17, 11 Pleasant Boulevard Avenue, zoning bylaw amendment application, preliminary report. Ward 12, that's Councillor Matlow, I believe. Councillor Matlow.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I move the preliminary report.
All those in favour? Opposed? That carries. Glasses, long hair, and masks. Three things that don't go well together. Okay. Item TE 25.18, Bloor Yorkville area, city-initiated secondary plan status update. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I need to hold this down just very briefly. I don't have questions of staff, but I'm just considering one of the communications on the file.
Okay, very good, Councillor Layton. If I could just mention, your voice is a little low. If you can just check how your microphone is set up. Item TE 25.19, Metrolinx GO expansion time extension of Wallace Avenue right-of-way occupancy. Councillor Bylaw.
Good morning. Support staff recommendations.
Okay, on the recommendations, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.20, Vision Zero Road Safety Plan, speed limit reductions to 30 kilometers an hour on local roads and public lanes, Toronto East York area, affecting wards 4, 9, and 19. I can move that. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. That's a good outcome. Item TE 25.21, improve safety for cyclists and pedestrians, Dufferin Street. I have deputants on that item. Item TE 25.22, accessible loading zones, St. Helens Avenue. Councillor Bylaw.
Staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.23, accessible loading zone, Rushbrook Avenue. That's Councillor Fletcher. She's not with us yet, so I will hold that until she's here. Item TE 25.24, construction staging area, 1779 through 1791 St. Clair Avenue West at Ford Street. Councillor Bylaw. I don't have any. One moment, please. Okay, Councillor Bylaw, over to you.
Move staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.25, construction staging area, 11 through 25 Yorkville Avenue West. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.26, construction staging area, 1998 through 2000 Bathurst Street. Councillor Matlow.
I have a motion to strike a community liaison committee, and I will move that along with the recommendation.
Okay, so we'll take that all as a package. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Construction staging area, 875 Eglinton Avenue West, Peveril Hill North. Councillor Matlow.
I have a motion to strike a community liaison committee, and then I'll move the recommendation as well.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 25.28, construction staging area, 202 through 208 St. Clair Avenue West, and 2 through 6 Forest Hill Road. Councillor Matlow.
On this, I'll move the recommendation.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.29, construction staging area, 2112 through 2114 Yonge Street, Hillsdale Avenue West. Councillor Matlow.
I'll move the recommendation.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. A lot of staging going on there, Councillor. Item TE 25.30, construction staging area, 409 Front Street East, Cooperage Street. Councillor Wong Tam.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move the staff recommendations as well as this amendment that's placed on your screen. It's to direct the applicant to establish a construction management working group that meets monthly with the local stakeholders and city divisions that are affected.
Okay. All those in, we'll take it all together. All those in favor, opposed, carried. And of course, that's Cooperage. Item TE 25.31, construction staging area time extension, 25 Ontario Street. Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, I'd like to move the staff recommendations as well as an additional motion, which the clerk can put onto the screen. Once again, it's to direct the applicant to establish a construction management working group.
Councillor, I'm sorry, the clerk don't seem to have a motion on item 31. Perhaps you could, when we're done the run through, sort that out. I'll hold it for now to make sure we can get that tidied up.
Actually, Chair, it's not necessary. Sorry, I was moving the, I jumped ahead to item 32, which is also a 413 item. So I apologize. Item 31 is just to move the recommendations in the staff report.
Okay. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Oh, I can't wait until we're meeting in person again. Item TE 25.32, construction staging area 6 through 16 Wellesley Street and 5 through 7 Nicholas Street. Councillor Wong Tam.
Okay, thank you. This is the motion where I need to amend the dates, move the staff recommendations, and to establish and to direct the applicant to establish a construction management working group which meets monthly with affected divisions as well as the area stakeholders, which includes the Bay Clover Hill Community Association. Thank you very much.
Okay. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.33, accessible parking spaces, Shaw Street, non-delegated. Councillor Cressy.
I'll move the staff recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.34, accessible parking spaces, May 2021, delegated. Who'd like to move that? Councillor Bylaw. Oh, we have a motion.
I actually have an amendment.
Okay.
Yes. I have a motion.
Okay, so that's for Eversfield Road, yes. Are there any other amendments on this item? No? So we'll vote on Councillor Bylaw's motion and the item as amended, all as a package. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.35, parking amendments, Sudan Avenue. Councillor Matlow. Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, guys, I made a mistake. Okay, we have to go back. 25.34, there were deputants. So if I can just have a motion to reopen that. Councillor Cressy, all those in favor, opposed, carried. I'll hold that for deputations. My fault. Apologies. Okay, now we can go to 25.35, parking amendment, Sudan Avenue. Councillor Matlow.
I move the recommendation.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.36, parking amendment, Westmount Avenue. Councillor Matlow.
I move the recommendation.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.37, traffic calming, Monarch Park Avenue. Again, that's Councillor Fletcher, so I'll hold it. Oh, Councillor Fletcher, you're with us.
I'm here, Councillor. I'm here, Mr. Chair. I've just been hiding in the weeds.
Okay.
On mute.
So would you like to move item 37?
Yes, I have a motion there.
Okay.
And it is to install those humps, please. There it is. Thank you. I'm sorry I was late. I can go back to 23 whenever you want. Okay.
Okay. All right, so on Councillor Fletcher's motion, which strikes the staff recommendations and replaces them, All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. What's the one? There was one I held that was Councillor Fletcher's item.
38, yeah.
23?
It's okay, I'm just going to send a motion to defer that, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
so we'll just keep going then. Thank you, Councillor Fletcher.
Yes,
Appreciate the heads up.
thank you.
Okay.
The next one's mine too.
Yeah, I'll get there. I've
Yep, no
got 4 devices and 5 stacks of paper in front of me. It's just,
You're going to get a juggling job soon.
yeah. Okay, item TE 25.38, traffic calming speed humps, St. Hubert Avenue, or St. Hubert probably. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm moving the recommendation to install those humps, please. Thank you.
Okay, so on the motion to delete the staff recommendations and to install, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item TE 25.39, appointment of members to the Bill Bolton Arena Board. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the recommendation.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.40. First, we need a motion to reopen TE 24.69, traffic calming poll results Cottingham Street. Motion to reopen.
I would.
Councillor Matlow. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now, Councillor Matlow, you have a motion to delete recommendation 1 and replace.
Yeah, by the way, just to, for context, it was just a minor technical or clerical error that was brought to our attention, so this is just about correcting that. So I move the new recommendations.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, now I need a motion to introduce items TE 25.41 through 54. Councillor Bradford, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Why don't we just continue with these because they were in the agenda package. The first is TE 25.41, guardrail, Lansdowne Avenue. Councillor Bylaw.
Approve recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor of the recommendations in the letter? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.41, no parking, Terra Nova Retirement Home, 1289 Dundas Street West. Councillor Bylaw.
Approve recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Bylaw is, as always, a diligent correspondent. Item TE 25.43, no stopping Edwin Avenue. Councillor Bylaw.
Approve recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.44, realignment of permit parking area 2 to exclude 181 Sterling Road. Councillor Bylaw.
Approve recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.45, realignment of permit parking area 5C to exclude the development located at 374 through 388 DuPont Street. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the recommendation in my letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.46, traffic control signals, 740 DuPont Street. Councillor Layton.
The recommendations in the letter.
Item TE 25.47, nomination for appointments to the Board of Directors of the Crescent Town Club. Councillor Bradford.
I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter, please.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.48, all-way stop control at the intersection of Oak Park Avenue and Gates Avenue. Councillor Bradford.
Like to move the recommendations in my letter, please.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.49, amend parking regulations on Church Street between Wood Street and Alexander Street. Councillor Wong Tam.
I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter. Thank you.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.50, pedestrianizing Market Street and Leader Lane. Councillor Wong Tam.
I'd like to move the recommendations contained in the letter.
Okay. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.51, reopening of item TE 23.87, traffic and parking regulations, various streets in the Regent Park area. Councillor Wong Tam on the reopening.
Yes.
All those in favor, opposed,
So moved.
carried. On the substantive part, which is to delete item 1 of the decision and replace it, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE, where am I now? 2552, return Dundonald Street and Gloucester Street to pre-construction traffic and parking regulations. Councillor Wong Tam.
I'd like to move the recommendations contained in the letter. Thank you.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.53, updated traffic signage to ensure pedestrian and public safety on Dalhousie and Mutual Streets. Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendations contained in the letter. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.54, speed limit reduction for St. Clair Avenue East and O'Connor Drive, Ward 19. Councillor Bradford.
Like to move the recommendations in my letter, please.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay. That was a good rundown. Well done, team. Okay, so now we'll return to item 1, which is our first timed item. Naming of a proposed private street at 400 through 440 Dufferin Street. Councillor Bylaw.
Thank you. Move recommendations in the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.2, we have a deputant, I'll read the title of it. 350 Vaughan Road, City-Initiated Zoning Bylaw Amendment Final Report. I have a deputant, Adrian Litowski.
Yes, Chair, that speaker is connected. I am now unmuting their mic.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is Adrian Litowski here. I am the planning consultant for the applicant. It's not really my intent here today to make a presentation. This matter was presented at the last committee meeting. Rather, I am here simply to make myself available to answer any questions that may come up for this item.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Are there any questions for Adrian? I don't see any. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Matlow.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to defer this item for one cycle. I'm still having meetings with both the developer and local residents who have expressed concerns regarding the staging of the construction, along with some environmental concerns, and I just want to make sure that we resolve them. So we will be addressing this next month.
Okay, so that would be deferring it to the June meeting. All those in favor? Correct. Opposed? Carried. Item TE 25.3, 111 to 125 River Street, zoning amendment and rental housing demolition applications, final report. I have two deputants. First, I have Kate Cooper. Kate?
That speaker is connected. I am now unmuting their mic.
Good
Hello?
morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Kate. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the committee. Start whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. My name is Kate Cooper. I am a planner with Bousfields, and I'm here today acting on behalf of Lifetime River Street, Inc. with respect to their property. at 111 to 125 River Street. The site is located at the southeast corner of Dundas Street East and River Street. I first want to take a second just to thank planning staff, particularly Leontine, if she's on mine today, for working so diligently and collaboratively with us throughout this entire process. So the site is located in the Queen River Secondary Plan area. This area, and particularly our site, was redesignated from neighborhoods to mixed-use areas and approved through a settlement hearing at LPAT in February of 2020. I want to note that the proposed development is in conformity with the policies of the secondary plan. The zoning bylaw amendment for the site was submitted in the fall of 2019 and has been revised since the original submission to respond to comments that we have received from staff. Some of the key revisions included citing the tower further south to eliminate shadow on Oak Street Park, a reconfiguration of the tower to allow for increased setbacks to the property lines, which also included a limiting distance agreement with Mercedes-Benz, which is the landowner to the immediate east. That has also been executed, and a decrease in the podium height and reconfiguration of the retail uses at grade. Throughout the development approvals process, Lifetime has also corresponded with City Housing SEPA with regard to the housing terms for the rental dwellings on the subject site, of which there are 5. So in addition to the provision of tenant relocation and compensation, Lifetime, upon acquiring the site without knowledge of occupancy of one of the units, began to correspond with that tenant who did express his desire to relocate, and Lifetime assisted that tenant in finding new, safe, and suitable alternative accommodation, meeting the tenant's requirements to be located in this same neighborhood, as well as finding a dwelling unit at a similar rent. So in addition to the tenant relocation and compensation for the 5 previous tenants, there's also a Section 37 contribution that's been secured with the city, which includes a cash contribution towards city-owned affordable housing or community space and or capital improvements to those within Ward 13, a local area streetscape and park improvements within Ward 13, as well as a contribution for public art on the city-owned lands which are adjacent to the development site. So we have reviewed the final report prepared by staff. We are fully supportive of the staff recommendations, and I am happy to answer any of the questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Are there any questions for Kate? No? Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us today. Next,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I have Adam Wynn.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Adam. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am in objection to the issuance of a demolition permit for 111 to 125 River Street, 111 to 125 River Street. This is of 8 early 20th century houses on the east side of River Street, just south of Dundas Street, in the Regent Park neighborhood of Toronto. In October 2019, Lifetime Developments proposed a 34-story condominium for the site, which received the demolition of all existing buildings. At this time, and despite the subject site's significant connection to area history, no formal heritage impact assessment has been conducted as part of its redevelopment application. I am advocating that a heritage impact assessment be required for 111 to 125 River Street prior to the issuance of a demolition permit. I am also advocating that several of the presently extant buildings may warrant heritage status and subsequent inclusion on the City of Toronto Heritage Register due to their connection to area history, including the history of both the Reinhardt Salvador Brewery, aka the East End Brewery, and the Regent Park neighborhood. These properties are located near the northwest corner of the Queen River Secondary Plan area, also known as OPA 287. This OPA identifies the historical role and significance of breweries within this area. 111 to 125 River Street are intrinsically linked to the history of the East End Brewery, the Salvador Brewery, which opened on this block pre-Confederation in 1862 and remained in operation until a catastrophic fire in 1957. By the turn of the 20th century, the brewery appears to have begun subdividing its River Street frontage for redevelopment. In 1906, 111 to 119 River Street were built in the Bay and Gable style and replaced the brewery proprietor's residence and the cooperage. Comparatively, 121 to 125 River Street were constructed in the arts and crafts styles in the mid to late 1920s, nearing the end of provincial prohibition and following prohibition. 111, 125 River Street are some of the last remaining pre-World War II residential house form properties in Regent Park. Regent Park went through slum clearance in almost all of the original 19th century, 20th century neighborhood buildings and replaced with low-rise social housing projects. These houses on River Street are last remaining remnants of the original pre-World War II Regent Park neighborhood. Alongside 111 to 125 River Street, several other blocks in this immediate area, including 83 to 97 River Street, 77 River Street, and 7 Labatt Avenue, and 5 to Fry Street, are also slated for demolition or have already been demolished without any heritage impact assessment being done beforehand. Please see Appendix B, Figure 11 in my letter dated the 17th of May. Properties predating World War II are becoming increasingly rare in Regent Park. Comparisons can be made between these River Street properties and the houses at 57 to 71 Elm Street, which added to the city's heritage register in February 2021 as some of the last remnants of St. John's Ward. St. John's Ward, also known as the Ward, was another downtown neighborhood that underwent mass demolitions as slum clearance initiatives in the mid-20th century. I have nominated 111 to 125 River Street for a heritage property evaluation. While I realize not all of the properties at this location warrant heritage protection, I would like to draw your attention particularly to 111 to 115 River Street. These three southmost of the architecturally intact of the block. 111 River Street also contains a ghost sign for the Reinhardt Cellar Brewery on its Mark Street elevation. As noted above, this brewery operated on this block for a century and was a major historical feature of the neighborhood. It would align with the historical elements identified in the Queen River Secondary Plan and Section 2D of the Planning Act to ensure further historical research is done on 1 to 125 River Street prior to allowing demolition. I also understand the developer at the site is contributing $3.1 million as a Section 37 agreement for public investment in Ward 13, although I'm uncertain if the Section 37 agreement has had any role in site decisions related to heritage, and would appreciate any further insight that you could provide. The retention and restoration of these properties alongside the ghost sign is also important for area history, and it would add both historical interest and value to the redevelopment proposed by Lifetime Developments. I would also like to acknowledge that Bill Eady of the Trefan Courts Residents Association and Corey Lemos, a noted historian of the Corktown Residents Association, have also both sent letters supporting the position that these properties require further historical research. 111 to 125 also less than 350 meters south of the boundary of the Cabbagetown South Heritage Conservation District, which indicates significant heritage. I think the time to invite you to examine my letter in further detail, as well as the visual resources in Appendix B. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Are there any questions for Adam? No, I don't see any. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day. Okay, that concludes the listed speakers. Are there any questions of staff? Councillor Wong-Tam?
Yes, thank you. This is a question for, I'm not moving the motion. Right now I just have questions of staff, sorry. This is a question for heritage planning staff. So Adam's deputation was very interesting. I had not heard necessarily that position before. Can you share with the community council your assessment of those properties as they are described in Adam's letter and deputation? Is there any merit in his request of taking a look to assess for its heritage value?
Good morning, Councillor. Through the chair, thank you. I have to say this is the first I've heard of this information as well over the past week, having heard from Adam. Unfortunately, this area was not subject to the kind of cultural heritage resource assessment that we are used to doing now. It was not identified either in the pre-application or application period as having any heritage potential. And I can't comment actually on whether or not there is any merit to the buildings because we haven't studied them. They certainly are similar to other buildings that we've taken an interest in, but as the planning report is coming forward now, this typically wouldn't be the time when we look at that, but I'm in your hands.
Thank you. So, I mean, recognizing that there is a Queen and River secondary plan that was adopted in 2015, obviously this area has been under official plan review and assessment. would your staff not have at least flagged these properties, even if they didn't necessarily do the deeper research for interest, meaning that they qualify for listing or designation? Wouldn't you have assessed that they have some heritage value? Because this is rather late in the discussion, and I'm just worried that we're letting something out the door if we did miss something over the years.
Well, when the secondary plan was done, as I said, we did not, there was no heritage review of the study area. You see us now typically working in areas hand in hand with planning studies of this sort. That wasn't in place as a process. So we did not evaluate or even do any sort of minimal survey of properties in the entire area. We did not have this property brought to our attention by anybody in the community or community planning. We actually didn't have in place at the time any way of screening individual applications as they were kicking off. We had tended to rely on people coming to us. That's the benefit of the Heritage Survey. That's why we need to be more proactive. But no, this area has not been subject to survey. These properties were never flagged or evaluated or looked at by heritage staff.
Thank you. And is it correct that this is the very first time that you're receiving communications from either Adam Wynn, the deputant, or perhaps the Corktown Residents Association? I'm just trying to understand, how did we get this far? And this very substantial information is coming before us now. And is asking us to either halt the process or suspend the process. And I'm not even sure how that would work.
Yeah, I'm not personally aware of any communication. So, you know, these buildings had community meetings associated with them years ago. People in the local community would have potentially raised something there, but nothing came forward to city planning. There's absolutely nothing in our notes or records to indicate it's coming forward now. So I can't account for the timing. I can just say that this is a good example of why we've needed the Heritage Survey, and getting out in front of these things is really fundamental.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you for your answers.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Okay, I don't see any, so to speak. Councillor Wong-Tam.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm going to request that we hold this item down. I am going to prepare a motion that will direct. I apologize. Just very similar to Mary McDonald, I'm seeing this communications from the community for the first time. It is a very long 55-page letter. I have not had a chance to review the entire content. But what I'd like to do is hold the item down and work with staff to prepare a motion that will allow them to review the deputation and the communications attached to this item. So therefore we can move it forward without recommendations to City Council, but I'd like the staff to report on the further communications that we've received today. So I will work on that motion with staff, and we just have to come back to this item. And I apologize to everybody who was probably anticipating a different response, but I think that we have a responsibility when information that is brought to us that requires a sober review, and I think that's what we need to do to ensure due diligence is followed here. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll hold item 3. Item TE 25.4, 150 Sterling Road, Block 3A, 5A, and 3D of 158 Sterling Road, zoning bylaw amendment application, removal of the holding symbol H. Final report. I have no deputants on this item. Are there any questions of staff? Councillor Bylaw, floor is yours.
Move staff recommendations. Thank you.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.5, Old Weston Road, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications, request for directions. I have no deputants. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Bylaw.
Move staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.6, 1913 through 1951 Yonge Street, 17 through 21 Millwood Road, and 22 Davisville Avenue zoning bylaw amendment application. Request for directions report. I have two deputants. David Charazenko.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, David. Welcome. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to address the committee. You can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be very brief. My name is David Charazenko. I'm a planner at Bousfields. We're planning consultants for the applicant. Just wanted to address the committee today and support the recommendations from city planning staff and let the committee know that we look forward to continuing to working with staff on the outstanding items identified in the comment section.
Thank you. Are there any questions for David? Seeing none, David, thank you for joining us today. Have a great afternoon. Next, I have Andy Gort. Andy? Sorry, Andy. Andy, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Hello, Andy. This is Nahom with the City Clerk's office. I will be unmuting your line. If you are listening to this meeting on YouTube, please mute it so that we do not get looping audio. Thank you. Andy, I am now unmuting your phone line.
Okay, can you hear me?
Much better, Andy. Welcome.
Okay.
So
Okay,
Andy,
well,
you know the drill here. I'll give you 5 minutes. Start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good morning, Councillor Chair and Councillor Gord Perks and fellow Toronto and East York councillors. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Andy Gort, and I'm the president of the South Eglinton Ratepayers and Residents Association, and the proposed development is in our catchment area of Bayview to Yonge and Eglinton to Merton. This two-tower application of 45 and 30 stories with an 8-story podium is a resubmission after the provincial government effectively doubled the permitted height for the Davisville neighborhood as part of OPA 405 provincial review. It's at a landmark location at the northeast corner of Davisville with a lot of local history going back to the 1800s as the center of West End, Davisville Village. And structures from that time still exist in this area, and therefore the concern about heritage inclusion in the design of the proposed building. And the immediate surrounding area, this quadrant is already being redeveloped, and the tallest building is 9 stories, so that's quite a contrast to 45, presents major transition issues. And one of those adjacent redevelopments is the rebuild of the Davisville Public School and new aquatic center. And there will be a significant shadow, wind, and sky view impact on that school and the playgrounds and on the adjacent neighborhood. And then there's a physical safety issue on the sidewalks adjacent to Davisville and Yonge. There's just not enough width on the sidewalks, and the building is not set back sufficiently, and there are a lot of school children that travel this sidewalk. So that would suggest a lot of work remaining on this development to make it acceptable to the community. Lastly, the size of the development will potentially house 1,500 residents, and that will add to the cumulative and growing impact of too much development in the Davisville neighborhood, which is projected to grow from the 2016 census of 9,000 people to 17,000 residents. And there's a number of further development applications expected. This area will easily meet the major station transit area policy, so that is not an issue. And so there were pre-COVID serious concerns about Yonge Line 1 and the Davisville subway station platform capacity at the AM peak hours. We are worried about existing physical infrastructure. And even though there's a new school, the school board already has declared that it will significantly lack capacity to absorb the development that's occurring in the Davisville neighborhood. And we're concerned about just traffic safety, both active and vehicular. I would like to kind of end on a positive note. We did together under the auspices and sponsorship of the city's chief planner, Greg Linton, hold a huge workshop in the fall of last year. all the Davisville landowners, city planning, the council, and the community conducted a week-long workshop, sometimes attending the 60 people with architects and planners from the developers, from the landowners, to establish a public realm, park, and retail plan for the Davisville neighborhood, including this particular site, as a further refinement of OPA 405. And I think all of us, including the landowners, realize that on a cumulative basis, the current application and future applications still to come would basically destroy this neighborhood. And the effort resulted in the Davisville workshop report, and that is one of our hopes for a better application than currently proposed. As a non-statutory effort, this is intended, this report, to provide direction for future Davisville development, and this application will be one of the first to apply the findings of that report. We would like to ask that the request for direction report references the Davisville workshop report as the report to include in the review of this application going forward. And I did have a comment for quite a few of the members of the Toronto and East York Community Council that are also members of the Planning and Housing Council. This was a terrific undertaking, this workshop. And since we also have the Sudan neighborhood and adjacent to the Roehampton and Broadway neighborhood, we wished this kind of an exercise would have been done for those apartment neighborhoods as well. And we would strongly recommend that an exercise like this would become a standard process of evaluating tall vertical neighborhoods for public realm and parking adequacy.
Andy, you're over time. I'm going to have to ask you to stop there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for thank you for your opportunity.
Are there any questions for Andy? No? Andy, thank you for sharing your thinking with us today. Those are all the deputants I have listed on this item. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Matley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I have a motion to consider the findings of the Davisville workshop as the proposal is evaluated, as referenced by Mr. Gord. And I'm going to move the recommendations. We're going to be opposing this, but we're also going to continue negotiations and continue working as a community with our planning staff to arrive at a resolution that meets the interests of our neighborhood and our quality of life. I'll just reiterate what Andy said. This development grew in size gratuitously after our Midtown in Focus plan was rejected as a whole and amended by the Minister of Municipal Affairs. It happened overnight. It was a different proposal as soon as the Ford government provided the development industry really everything that they had been lobbied for. And I won't go on at length. I think all of you understand what I'm referring to, but it's just upsetting that this is how we're doing planning in Ontario. You know, we're reacting to developers being really successful at lobbying our provincial government to allow them more power than city halls throughout this province and our communities. And this is it's not good planning. It's not good for communities, but we are pragmatically addressing the reality, even if it's not a reality that we asked for. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take Councillor Matlow's motion together with the rest of the item. All those in favour, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.7, 1134 through 1140 Yonge Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application, request for direction. I have a deputant, Frank Copping.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
I can, Frank. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you very much. And thank you, members of the committee. This property is commonly referred to as the Staples site. It's the old P.S. Arrow building constructed in 1930. The development proposes to retain the front part of the building on Yonge Street and Marlborough Avenue, which have beautiful curved windows, but the rest of the building they intend to demolish. I share the back lot line with the building. Their south exposure and my north exposure are the same. And I'm currently looking at the back wall and the chimney that I've asked to be protected. The back wall at the west end of 1140 Young starts at three stories tall, then slopes down to just beyond the chimney to 2 stories, and then continues to 1134 Young Street at that level. And I've suggested or requested that the back wall, the south wall, and the chimney be retained because, one, they are an integral part of the Pierce Arrow historic building. They are visible from McPherson Avenue, and I attached a couple of photographs indicating that. They certainly form a privacy and noise barrier for neighbors from activity further north on Young, Marlborough, and Price Streets. And they're constructed from the same yellow clay bricks that's found throughout the city. And clay deposits, I've indicated, gave rise to local brickworks, Ramsden Park, Christie Pits, and the Don Valley Brickworks. And they are, as I suggest, a well-loved part of our neighborhood. And certainly they are well-loved by us. The concept of what is going to be built basically fills us with horror. They're proposing the bottom 4 stories to be solid brick, above that to be another 4 stories of condo glass, and above 8 stories then there is going to be setback. But I'm looking at the north sky right now, and that view is going to disappear if this development goes through. I have to look at what they are proposing, which in a community member meeting, the developer said there's going to be 66 suites with an average size of 2,200 square feet, 2,200 square feet. That's approximately the same as every house on Marlborough Avenue and McPherson Avenue. And instead of being in a vertical plane, these are going to be stacked horizontally. They're going to allow an average of 1.5 parking spots per suite, which is more than most of us enjoy having to park out on the street these days. Looking at what the developer, how he's moving this forward, he's going directly to the LPAT. I'm comparing and contrasting that with the construction of 1128 Young Street, which is just 3 stores down the road, about 5 years ago. City planning had worked with the developer, had worked with the neighborhood, and our thanks go to Barry Brooks from City Planning and to Councillor Wong Tam, who was our councillor at the time. What they changed was that there would be a 7.5 meter setback from any residential property. The as of right for that building was only extended by a minimal amount. 45-degree angular planes, again, were just minimally breached. And there was a city-owned light pole and lamp on the site. And this was replaced by the developer with security lighting for people using the laneway. My impression is by the developer going directly to the LPAT, they're not interested in negotiating. It's a roll of the dice. And
Frank,
this I find...
Frank, I'm afraid you've used your time. I'm going to have to ask you to stop there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Frank? I don't see any. Frank was the only... Thank Frank so much for having joined us today. We appreciate your time. I have no further deputants. Are there any questions of staff? I don't see any.
Maybe
Councillor Layton.
if I could just one question of our heritage staff. If we were to include heritage attributes, would you advise us to include heritage attributes here today, specifically like the south wall and the chimney?
Good morning, Councillor. Through the chair, it would not be my advice in this particular moment to include attributes, and that isn't because there wouldn't be any importance to any of the features that the community is interested in, but we would be doing a fulsome designation identifying heritage attributes that is not on the public record. So these pieces of the building have no standing, and they haven't been subject to the work that we would normally do, which clearly we will be doing as this project moves forward into the LPAT system. But I can guarantee we will certainly include them in our consideration of heritage attributes for the site as a whole.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions of staff? Councillor Matt?
Yeah, may I ask just a quick question, more rhetorical to inform Mary if she is not aware. Are you aware that building for several years was CBC Studio 4, and from a cultural heritage perspective, some of Canada's like beloved shows of a certain generation, like Wayne and Schuster and others, were actually filmed there. I ask you if you are aware of that, and if not, if you would be aware of that.
I am aware of it from my own personal memory, but I hadn't thought of it to this point. But thank you. I agree with you. It's an important part of the site's history.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, and thank you also. Thank you particularly for putting Mary on the floor so I could once again admire her beautiful red toaster. Are there any other questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll turn it over to you, Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. And I have a motion. And that's to revise recommendation 2D, just to include the evaluation of the south brick wall and chimney. This is, I actually think this is an older draft of recommendation. I'm gonna have to go back and check really quickly. But I will, I'll just say that this, much like the last item that we heard, this building, the height and massing of the building, is a direct result of the provincial government changing TO Core, the downtown secondary plan. The developers relying very specifically on the amendment made by the minister that allows for oddities and exceptions to the pattern of development set out by the community and the city. As it turns out, every site is the exception, right? We knew this was happening. Every single developer was going to come in and use that exact same the addition by the minister to try to justify additional height. And so I would just say that it does us a tremendous disservice when the provincial government meddles in municipal affairs like our secondary plans. We spend years building them. They spend moments with a red pen striking stuff out and making changes. They simply don't have the authority to come in and overturn the years of work that was done by the city and in hand in hand with the community. And this isn't to say that the community got everything they want in these proposals. It's not that the city is taking a position that justifies no development. It just justifies an organized pattern of development, rather than developer after developer just trying to push their buildings up and up for the sole purpose of pushing their profits higher and higher. And so I would say that that unfortunately we will be spending more money going. I predict spending more money going to the LPAT and defending the city's original position and pattern, and we'll probably have to make some sacrifices in order for us to achieve at least some kind of a reflection of what the community and the city had laid out as part of the secondary plan. With respect to the heritage, I agree with both the speaker who suggested that these are parts of the local heritage of the community as well as parts of the heritage of the city and deserve consideration. But I also I have faith in our staff, and it makes me a little uncomfortable picking and choosing heritage attributes at community council without the benefit of a rigorous expert submission stating this is why we need to protect, this is what we need to protect, this is why. And whether or not it's in the context of a development proposal, I simply don't care. If it's heritage that needs to be protected, let's protect it. If it can be integrated in or removed, then have that discussion separate to an application. But I felt it necessary to include specifically in the instructions to staff to at least ensure that the community knows that city staff are taking it seriously. Not that they weren't going to, but this codifies it for them. So I hope the developer is willing to come to the table, but given we've seen very little movement in the last several or many months that we've had this application in front of us, I don't suspect that that's the case. And I think we'll probably see more of cases like this up Yonge Street in areas that we had thought we were planning for the future, but the provincial government has changed that for us.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the item? Seeing none on the item, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay. Next, we have item TE 25.8, 652 Church Street, zoning amendment application, request for directions report. I have 3 deputants listed. First, Carolyn Buxbaum. Carolyn?
To the chair, that speaker is connected and they've been provided with the audio panels. Carolyn, she's just connected now. I am unmuting Carolyn.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, Carolyn, I can. Welcome. So, Carolyn, we're going to give you 5 minutes to address the committee. You can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the Toronto and East York Community Council. My name is Caroline Buxbaum. I'm a resident of 99 Hayden Street, which is the 9-story condo building immediately east of the site. I'd like to first thank planning staff for their work to prepare this report that recommends opposing this zoning bylaw amendment application. I'd also like to thank Councillor Mike Layton for expressing that planning is about looking at the overall pattern of buildings and open spaces, and it's something that's not done in one day. I'm speaking in support of opposing this rezoning application. I would like to voice my concerns that I submitted last September in a letter that was signed by 55 of my neighbors at 99 Hayden Street. Here are some key concerns that I have at this time. This proposal represents significant overdevelopment of the site. It is out of place in a community that is low rise in scale with 8- and 9-story buildings immediately adjacent to the east and primarily 3- to 4-story apartment buildings and houses to the south and east. I am concerned about the character of our neighborhood, which I appreciate every day as being brick in character, brick in color, beige colors, low rise, beautiful rental buildings, a mix of housing that is mostly low rise and not being disrupted with very high density that can cause traffic issues. Another concern is that the proposed density is significant. I do not see how the site would even support half or a third of the density proposed, considering the lack of adequate space for people to move around the site. I've asked for a park space in the parking lot that's currently to the east of the site, or an adequate mid-block connection between Hayden Street and Charles Street. Right now, we have a very small pedestrian connection that stops midway from Charles as you go north. And when you get to our building at 99 Hayden Street, it goes straight into our driveway that goes down to the driving garage. This is not a safe atmosphere for people, and we need people and pedestrians to be able to circulate around the building, especially when adding more density on top of density already to the west. Another concern is that we live in a beautiful, calm, pedestrian-friendly cul-de-sac. Our cul-de-sac on Hayden Street, east of Charles Street, is used by many pedestrians in 4 condo buildings, which is about 1,100 units. And it's also traveled by people going to the Rogers building to get to and from work. This is not a back alley. This is a residential community. These are rare parts of downtown that are attractive for people to come, live, and work and contribute to the city of Toronto. And I'm concerned that having a wall of towers along Charles Street in a row with such added density and traffic issues will not support good quality living in Toronto. In the staff report, I appreciated this point. It was on page 33. The report wrote, the proposal has not responded appropriately as the overall height of the building is drastically different than the existing and planned heights on the south side of Charles Street East that would envision a much lower scale of development in the range of 12 stories. I agree that a building at this site should not exceed 12 stories to conform with official plan policies that require a transition in scale and density, and to be consistent with provincial policy to provide well-designed built form that is contextually appropriate. Other concerns were raised last week by me and other neighbors about the heritage of the building. We appreciate the Traders Building and approach the Traders Building from all 4 sides. And we asked that all 4 sides, including the east side, or at least 3 columns of windows inward from the north and from the south, be included in the heritage attributes. I'm glad to see that the east side, which is our primary facade facing outward towards our neighborhood, is now included. I'm not sure why the north and south side have been removed, because those sides are very important, and I do not support entrances or back alley type of treatment to the building on the north, the east, or the south side. The entrance of the building is on the west side, which is on Church Street. I'm asking the city to please encourage good planning, well-designed built form, and a sense of place with the services and infrastructure that will support our residents. I thank the city for carefully developing policies that state that not every site is the right site for tall towers and high density. A large block development at the entrance to a unique pedestrian-friendly area is not good planning. And in conclusion, while it is great to see more rental stock,
Carolyn, I'm sorry to interrupt. Carolyn, I'm sorry to interrupt. You've used up your 5 minutes, so I'm going to have to stop you there. Are there any questions for Carolyn? Seeing none, Carolyn, thank you so much for sharing your thinking with us today. The next deputant I have listed is Alison Chong.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Chairman
Alison.
And Council.
Good morning. So
can you hear me well?
I can. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give you 5 minutes to address the committee. You can start whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Toronto and East York City Council. I am an owner and resident of 100 Hayden Street, which is directly northeast of 625 Church Street. We are a low-rise residential building with rooftop green space amenity, as well as ground floor green space amenity for our residents. I am in support of the opposition of this development application as well. I have to thank Councillor Layton, City Planning staff, for all of the amazing work that they have done in hearing our community's concerns. However, I wanted to make sure that I brought this to the attention of the entire Toronto and East York City Council so that they could understand how much we value this unique City of Toronto, downtown City of Toronto, low-rise cul-de-sac. The applicant has not made any changes to their proposed development, despite the numerous concerns that the community continues to have with the height, mass, and tower positioning. I encourage the council to refer to the report so well done by planner Catherine Bailey that refers to the fact that this development is not consistent with the diminishing and descending heights on the ridge of Church Street East. As well, the near proximity of this proposed development and such a tall building will create a darkening canyon effect on the public realm and the existing residential buildings and green spaces. Great cities like San Francisco have unique neighborhoods. They have the hate, they have the mission. They don't need large developments to be unique and to be valued. New York City has Soho, Greenwich Village. Toronto is a great city as well. We have the Boulevard community and we have the Church Wellesley Village. And that area is a heritage area. There are many heritage designated buildings. And this is what we would like to see also for 625 Church Street. On the north-south axis, this building with its brick and significant presence in relation to other buildings along Bloor Street that the Heritage Preservation's report so eloquently notes is something that we really need to try and preserve. The north-south axis also has low-rise buildings just south of 625 Church Street. And so to have that continuity of the value of the village, although we are at the north end, it would be so amazing to ensure that this building in its entirety is preserved, as it really stands as an entranceway to the village and also is a grounding of our Bloor Walk community. My comments to the council are really regarding understanding how much of an impact this huge development that takes up one city block, however, is surrounded by a one-way street and a very short two-way cul-de-sac, where that is the entrance to two residential buildings. With this development, that development will now be, that development would actually encourage so much traffic, both commercial and residential, due to the density, that they would no doubt block entrance to our condo residential area. Our emergency vehicles need access through that entrance. There is no other way for them to come through. Any visitors to our buildings would come through that same entrance to Hayden Street. And for sure, even though the traffic report indicates there may not be additional traffic, the fact that we would have to put a traffic light there as part of Section 37 that's being proposed indicates that there will be increased traffic. My final point really is about the shadow impact. We really feel that the impact study does not show other private green space that needs to be acknowledged.
Alison, I'm sorry to interrupt. Alison, I'm sorry to interrupt. You're at 5 minutes. Could you just give us one final sentence, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I hope and trust that the city will continue to work to conserve the heritage of the four sides of this existing building that grounds the unique cul-de-sac of the Bloor Walk community in downtown Toronto. We don't need another tall building in this area.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Alison? I don't see any. Alison, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thinking. Next I have listed is Linda Brett. Linda, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Hello, Linda.
Here today. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you very well. Welcome to Toronto East York Community Council. You'll have 5 minutes with which to address the committee. You can start whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Linda Brett, and I'm president of the Bloor Street East Neighborhood Association, the community association to which the subject property is situated. Being a submission requesting that you support the staff recommendations to allow city representation at the LPAT in defense of their report before you is filed with the clerk, and you should have access to it. In addition, we request the approval of the Heritage Report and Supplemental Report, which is next on the agenda. First, I'd like to point out some of the positives of Manulife's development. Manulife itself is a proven developer and landlord, both of residential and commercial buildings. They will remain for the long term. It provides much needed rental stock, and through the Section 37 agreement, some affordable units. The proposal is expanding and enhancing the office space and strives to provide a Class A building. The Section 37 agreement itself provides good overall community benefits, but that's where it ends. All of these positives should not come at the expense of good planning and the quality of life of those already in the community, which is expressed by the two deputants before us, which are within our footprint. As far as height and massing, the upper floor plate at almost 60%, upper floor plates at almost 60% and 20% over the 700 square meters in the tall building guidelines is not even close to meeting any kind of metrics. By the city report, it does not provide an appropriate transition in height. And we also wanted to keep a shadowing off the Manulife head office lands at 200 Bloor Street East, which they have not addressed in any meaningful way. We'd also like to point out that the buildings around here, as discussed by the other deputants, were planned and planned with the idea of respecting St. Paul's Church, which is a major historic church on Bloor Street, and thus the lower rise buildings surrounding St. Paul's Church, and this development is right behind the church. The heritage component before you today is to designate the site as a culturally significant and provides a framework for the Heritage Conservation Plan. The Heritage Conservation Plan itself is not before you, and the development we know does not meet the Heritage report that is the next on the agenda. We at all times have said that these definitions were required in order to properly assess the plan. Incidentally, the project is within the area to which the heritage assessment is currently being conducted, the process of which is before you today in agenda item number 25.18, progress on the secondary plan for Bloor Yorkville area. We're currently in working groups on that particular project. It is our hope that the city and Manulife can come to an agreement that is satisfactory to all, and the LPAT hearing becomes the settlement hearing. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Linda? No? Linda, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. That's all the deputants I have listed today. Are there any questions of staff?
Mr. Chair, if I could make a suggestion, there's another item here that's connected to it. It's TE 25.9 that also has 3 speakers, but it's the Declaration of Heritage on the site. I see that 2 of the speakers are the same, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If we could deal with them together, that would probably make sense.
Okay. Why don't we do that then?
It's okay because it's only a request for direction. It's not a staff item.
Okay, yeah. I've been told by the clerk that there's even a way that we can do it that's all tickety-boo. So, let's go on then to take the deputations on 25.9. First, we have Alison again. Alison, do you have additional comments that you want to make related to the heritage portion of this conversation?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I do. Thank you so much.
Please go ahead.
Regarding the heritage preservation, again, I'd like to commend the Heritage Preservation Services in recognizing the Traders Building as a significant building that grounds and provides a sense of place and entrance to the Hayden Bloor Walk community, as well as the Church Street neighborhood on the north-south axis, where there are existing heritage low-rise buildings directly to the south of this site on the east side of Church Street. Further to the May 12, 2021 Toronto Preservation Board meeting and my May 10th comments submitted, I continue to respectfully ask the Toronto Preservation Board and the Toronto East York Community Council to preserve all 4 existing sides of this Traders building. The beauty and value of the entire building and each of its sides, as depicted in figures 17, 18, 19, and 20, all dating back to the 1950s, and its relation to the many other associated significant buildings at 120, 200, 250, and 333 Bloor Street East, greatly reflects the heritage value of the building in its entirety at this site. I respectfully ask the city to ensure good community planning, and that includes the fact that this is a building and a site worthy of preservation. The site on its full block, bounded by Charles Street East and Hayden Street to the south and to the north, is the entrance to a unique downtown neighborhood cul-de-sac community. The Traders building is a part of our neighborhood as it is. It is a high public pedestrian usage public realm area that provides a scale that is relatable to all of the public members that use this area. And I strongly believe that with Toronto Preservation Board and Toronto East York City Council's help, we should be prioritizing and maintaining this scalable, pedestrian-friendly community by maintaining the heritage preservation of this building in its entirety. It is meant to be looked at from 4 sides. Again, I highlight the figures from the 1950s that shows all 4 sides of this building and its value. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Alison? No? Alison, thanks so much for contributing today. Next, I have Carolyn Buxbaum.
Hello, this is Home with the City Clerk's office. We seem to be not receiving audio from the committee room 1. One moment, Chair.
Okay. Test 1, 2, 3. Well, that would be really big bummer if they couldn't hear us.
To the chair, I believe the issue has been resolved. If you could say a few words, please.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, everybody, we temporarily lost audio contact with the committee room, or you lost audio contact. I could always hear myself. First of all, I want to thank Alison for your contribution on this item. The next deputant I have listed is Carol Buxbaum.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
I can, Carolyn. Do you have any comments that you'd like to make on the item as it pertains to the inclusion of the property on the Heritage Register?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this item. Last week, I spoke to the Toronto Preservation Board, and I requested that at least up to three columns of windows inward from both the north. Sorry, the audio is a bit. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Carolyn. Please continue.
Oh, great. Okay. Last week, I spoke to the Toronto Preservation Board requesting that at least the east facade up to and including 3 columns of windows inward from both the north and south sides on all 6 floors be preserved, but preferably the entire east facade be preserved, as well as the entire west and north and south facades. As Alison has discussed as well, this building, the Traders Building, as it's known to us in the community, is an anchor for our community of residential buildings on the Hayden Street cul-de-sac. Every day, we admire the building on all four sides. I appreciated the comments made by the Toronto Preservation Board in their deliberation that this building cannot be thought of as a classical frontage, but as a 3D building that is looked at as a whole. I expressed that the primary facade for those of us in the community on Hayden Street is the east facade, which faces our building. The Hayden Street cul-de-sac east of the Traders Building is well-traveled and used by residents from 4 condo buildings and over 1,100 units who approach the building from the east every day. Hayden Street also has a local restaurant patio that faces the east side. We appreciate the architectural qualities of this building and of the other buildings that can be seen in our neighborhood. And we are requesting that all 4 sides be preserved. And as I had said in the previous item, I hope that the city will ensure good planning by preserving neighborhood character and respecting the qualities that make our neighborhood so special. In conclusion, while it's great to see rental stock, this is not the site for a tall, high-density tower that changes drastically the character of our neighborhood and doesn't seem to be supported by the services, the spaces around the building, and transit. So thank you for the time to speak. I would like to ask a question. I see that after we had asked for the east side to be preserved, Heritage staff did add the east side, but they made a change where they changed. I had noted that I appreciated the regular rhythm of fenestration that was noted on the primary and the east and the west facade, but also we want to preserve the north and south facade. And I see that there was a change made to the north and south facade, and I wonder about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. The process here is that you can come and give us your advice. We don't take questions from the public for staff, though. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
You're quite welcome. Are there any questions for Carolyn? Seeing none, the next deputant I have listed is David Bronskill.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Just checking my audio that you can hear me.
David, you're loud and clear as always. You know the drill. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
Start when you're ready.
Thank you, sir. I will not take my full 5 minutes. I am here on behalf of the owner, actually indicating that it is not our client's intention to object to the proposed intention to designate the property. I'm speaking only to the notice of intention to designate, although obviously these matters are being heard together. And if there are questions of me about the larger matter, I'm happy to receive them. The reason that our client is not objecting to the proposed intention to designate the property, frankly, is some appreciated extensive discussions that have occurred between Heritage Planning staff, our client, and its heritage consultants. We welcomed those discussions. That has resulted in the proposed statement of significance and list of heritage attributes that are before you. We've also had a chance to review the supplementary staff report that has come out of the direction and advice of the Toronto Preservation Board. And again, even with that report recommending a change to the statement of significance, our client is still in a position where it will not be objecting to the proposed intention to designate. Just very quickly as background, I mean, this is a site that is designated in the city's downtown plan as mixed use areas too. It is certainly a candidate for urban intensification based on its location. What the notice of intention to designate will do, and as this panel of councillors is very well aware given development applications within their wards, is set the parameters for what would ultimately be an appropriate approach to heritage conservation of that property. through the redevelopment as a tall building. We recognize there are still outstanding issues to be addressed as outlined in the directions report. We are hopeful to continue that dialogue through settlement discussions or even mediation. But when it comes to the heritage matters, those heritage attributes have been inserted there to allow the appropriate conservation of this heritage asset. I would simply finish, Mr. Chair, by noting there is a difference, and I've been taught this by both Ms. McDonald at the city and a bunch of heritage consultants on the private side. There is a difference between conservation and preservation. Conservation is the term of art that we find in the provincial policy statement, and as you know, in the city's own official plan, and it is different than preservation. And I know that some of the previous speakers spoke to preservation, whereas we're working with our consultants and heritage staff on an appropriate approach to conservation. I'm optimistic that we're going to get there, and this notice of intention to designate is an important step along that process. We welcome it, and we look forward to the opportunity to continue the discussions with heritage staff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions for David? No, seeing none. David, thank you for sharing your thinking with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're quite welcome. Those are all the deputants that I have listed for this item. Councillor Layton, you had suggested that we take the items together. Oh, first, are there any questions of staff on either of the two items? Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. And just to help get some clarity for Ms. Buxbaum and myself, what do we have in front of us by way of the Toronto Preservation Board and Heritage's supplemental report? Let's see that toaster again.
Through the chair. Here it is. We certainly appreciated the comments that we received about the elevation, particularly the east elevation. It wasn't that we had not considered it to be a value. We simply didn't pull it out and speak to the attributes that elevation conveyed. So what that means in practical terms is that we don't look at this building as something that, like when we talk about primary, we're looking at the primary facade being the one that has the greatest amount of ornamentation, the presence, the entryway generally. And there are two major things that are of value in terms of how this building is organized. And one is what we call the tripartite organization. So there is a design at the lower level, at the base, there's a shaft and there's a capital, and each of those levels is individually articulated. We didn't in the original speak to the east elevation because it does not fully express the tripartite organization. It doesn't have the base stone cladding. It's not as ornamental. So we didn't feel that as a heritage attribute that it was worth calling out because it didn't actually, to our minds and our thinking at the time, express this organization. Taking a second look at it, we feel we were probably a little too particular about the ornamentation on the front and expecting that you had to have stone cladding in order to read the tripartite organization. So great thanks to our research and evaluation staff who always take on these challenges with great rigor. And we had quite a good internal debate about it. You can see the tripart organization on the east elevation. The window sizes are different. It does have a different design. So we are recognizing that is in part carried over on the back, and the in part means it doesn't have the cast stone base. The other thing that we took a look at was the idea of the symmetry. Certainly the east elevation is as symmetrical in design as all the other elevations, so we've acknowledged that. The fenestration and the organization of the fenestration is carried around all four walls. So there's a general statement there. We didn't call out individual elevations because all the walls share those characteristics, so they are implicitly understood. And we call out the north and side as being, they have a shared design. So we pulled apart some of the attributes in our list before in order to be a little bit clearer about what was happening where on the building. In fact, this doesn't change our evaluation or understanding of the building. It just brings more clarity to the idea of the organization and the architectural design. So all of the elevations have heritage attributes that we're naming. Sorry if that was an endless description.
No, thank you very much. Mary, had me imagining the Heritage Department on a Zoom call having a heated debate over windows and letting each other have it. I imagine that in my mind, half of your staff yelling over Zoom about how important those window locations were. But thank you very much for that clarity and for the very quick turnaround on the supplemental work.
You're very welcome. I want to call out Alex Corey, who's the author of this particular report, and also to thank staff for being so thoughtful in how they approach things. I think it's a real strength of our section, and we don't yell at each other.
No, Councillor Layton. We leave that for the elected officials to do. Are there any other questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Layton.
Yes, I have an amendment to TE 25.A9. That recommendation 1 be deleted and replaced with the recommendation contained in the supplemental report.
Good. Go ahead, speak to the two items.
And I would just like to thank staff for the quick turnaround on this particular item and the thoughtfulness and evolution of the city's position that has happened over time, and for the planner for the rather lengthy process that both, and to the credit that the developer entered into very early days pre-development application and continued through until we reached a point where there was clearly not going to be a meeting of the minds. I hope that discussion continues. I hope the developer realizes the position that the city's taking is firm, and that this isn't a bargain about a couple of stories that as we walk towards the LPAC. We're defending the position that the city, after much research and engagement with our communities, entered into with TO Core. To start drawing lines in ways that just benefit certain development proposals, rather than looking at how the city had proposed and the intent of the TO Core is wrong. And developers need to know that they can't just try to make the lines meet their maximum profits. And so I'm glad to see that the city's going ahead with a position that is to oppose this application on its way to the local planning appeal tribunal, and I will support that position going forward.
Thank you. So first, let's take item 8.
To speak?
Oh, sorry. Councillor Wong Tam, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, Chair. I want to just convey my thanks to city staff as well as Councillor Layton. I recognize that there's been significant development pressures within the area, and oftentimes the city staff have actually cited approval of those development applications and have sided with the developer. And oftentimes you can see some of the high intensification that we've seen on Charles Street, which has oftentimes, and I mean Charles Street east of Yonge to Church, and we have a street there that has significant high rise. Every single property owner believes it's their right to have a tall building. So it is actually with some type of relief, but also I think gratitude to city staff for coming to a different conclusion this time, because in the past we've actually seen them evaluate Charles Street within the height regime that's coming down from Yonge and Bloor. And oftentimes the question from the local community and myself as a councillor has been, why can't it stay on Yonge and why can't it stay on Bloor? Why does it have to absolutely penetrate Charles? So I'm really pleased to see them actually draw a line here, because when this application first came in, my biggest fear was that what happened on Charles Street between Yonge to Church Street was going to happen on this section of Charles Street between Church to Jarvis Street. So I do recognize that, you know, perhaps it may not have been the immediate reaction of city planning staff. And certainly I'm very grateful that that the thinking and the has evolved. I'm really pleased to see that staff are taking a very nuanced and different approach. And I think it's also very important for us to recognize that, you know, even though we have a staff refusal report, which don't come very often, so when we do come, let's embrace them. But I do recognize that once this gets in front of LPAT, all gloves are off. So, you know, if it's refused by city council, refused by city planning staff, by the local councillor, it still may have a chance of getting approved at the LPAT, that quasi-judicial provincial politically appointed board that we all hate. So I do want to be mindful and be cautiously optimistic for today's, I think, success and victory for the community, because this is actually a gateway marker. It is a very important part of the community. It's a very important site, not just for the Church and Wellesley Village, but for those who are living on Hayden. They have cited the concerns that they have. And Hayden is not necessarily a pass-through street, especially not on the east side of Church. And those residents who wrote in to express their concerns are absolutely right, is that if the building is too large, if the development is too aggressive, it will actually change Hayden Street forever. And the effects that we have seen on the west side of Charles Street, west side of Church on Charles Street, has not been good. It has been too much density, too much aggressive height, and I think that it chokes off the quality of life. So good on the community for standing up for themselves, good on city planning, good on Councillor Layton, and everybody who's been involved with the process. And let's hope that there's a good outcome for everyone at the LPAT. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak? Seeing none. Okay, we'll take item 8 first. On the staff recommendations, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Going to 9, we can take Councillor Layton's amendment and the rest of the item as a package. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay. Next, we have item TE 25.10, intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, 103 Heath Street West. I have one deputant listed, Charles Keating. Charles, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me? Am I clear?
Absolutely well, Charles. Thank you for joining us. You'll have 5 minutes. You can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. For the record, I'd like to change my name from Charles to Chris.
Oh, you know what? That's my mistake. Chris, yes. Go ahead.
I don't want to submit my baptismal certificate as part of this deputation.
Very good.
And also, I was listening to David Bronskill eloquently describe that he has no objection to designate, and I was rather pleased by it. But I had to listen closely because he was talking about 625 Church Street, and possibly at the end of this deputation, he could say the same thing for 103 Heath Street, which is what I'm deputing about. The City of Toronto has a significant history. It holds some of the largest collections of 19th century Victorian houses in North America. We must preserve the few Victorian homes on Heath Street West. Their heritage is our history. History and heritage plays a fundamental role in human thought and are tools to assist our learning. My take is that we better understand ourselves in the present by understanding the past and the circumstances that brought us to the present. Ask yourself, if 5 generations from now, will our history and our heritage be of value to Canadians? 103 Heath West has cultural heritage value, as been pointed out by Mary and her marvelous team at HPS. It's built of abundant red brick. The style was well suited to the narrow and deep lots of Toronto and was a cost-effective design of the late 19th century. This three-story house is quintessential high Victorian house built in a time when Victorian-style housing dominated a number of the city's older neighborhoods. It has several unique features, including the bay and gable style. In Toronto, it is vital that we acknowledge, admire, and retain the heritage of the first families. Designating this unique Victorian James Hobbs house dating back to 1892, 103 Heath West is an observance that we owe to ourselves and to those who come after us. In a letter submitted to this committee, David Bronskill, the lawyer for the company 103 Heath Incorporated, he made 2 points, and I quote from his letter: as part of the proposed redevelopment of the property, our client is that consultants have been engaged in extensive discussions with heritage planning staff. It is disingenuous, in my point of view, that there have been many meetings, yet he requested defer and have more meetings so they can go to the Province Preservation Association. Mr. Bronskill also states in his letter that heritage planning does recommend that the north portion of the existing house should be conserved. In that he concludes, it is recommended that a portion of the house be conserved. It is a concession that the house has heritage value and should be preserved. Though again, I find his playing between preservation and designation rather disingenuous. In conclusion, I'd like to say that Michael Vaughan, who was chair of the Conservation Board of Ontario for 6 years and is now a board member on the Heritage Committee of the Deer Park Residents Group, as chair of the Conservation Board, he wrote, "There is an old Supreme Court of Canada's decision as authority for the proposition that municipal councils not only have the authority to act in the public interest as they see it from time to time, but have the duty to do so. The heritage designation of properties is a decision that council must in law make and does make in the public interest and not in the interest of any individual or group." Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chris? Seeing none, Chris was the only deputant I had listed on this item. Are there any questions of staff? I don't see any. Councillor Matlow.
Mr. Chair, I will move the motion to designate, the recommendation to designate, and I will simply concur with Chris that the city's heritage planning staff are truly marvelous.
Thank you. On the motion then, on the item, all those in favor, opposed, carried. That takes us to item TE 25.13, non-residential residential demolition application 72 Ashdale Avenue. I didn't skip anything, did I? Yes, I did. I skipped some. My apologies. We're now going to item TE 25.11, inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Registry, 79 and 81 Granby Street. I do not have any deputants listed. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Wong-Tam.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to move the recommendations in the staff report and the letter from the Toronto Preservation Board, and to thank city staff for doing the review of these properties. It has been a long time request from the community to have staff take another look. This matter was before the Preservation Board on 2 occasions, and this community council, I believe, also on 2 occasions. And I think it is just a great example of city staff digging deeper, and as new materials and new information emerged, they were able to have their opinion evolve, which brought us to the outcome today. And so I know that it's been a long time file. It has been one that has been sitting on everyone's desk for several years. And I just want to thank staff for their hard work, because they could have said, no, Councillor, enough of this, we're done. But instead, they were able to listen to the community. They were able to listen to myself. And I want to say thank you for that. It was a truly collaborative process.
Thank you. So on the item, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.12, intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, alterations to a heritage property and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement, 685 Queen Street East. I don't have any deputants listed on this item. No questions of staff. Councillor Fletcher, over to you. Councillor Fletcher, can you hear me? One moment, please, everybody.
There's a motion to defer that, please. Staff have it. Thank you.
Okay, could you do that on microphone?
I did. I just did it.
Just a minute. I'll try.
So on item 12, there's a motion to defer.
Not on 12.
No, sorry, not on 12. Sorry, on 11? No, on 12.
We're on 12.
We're on 12. Councillor Fletcher?
I'm sorry.
We're on item 12.
My item is 13.
Yes, we're on item 12.
Oh, 14. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Gord. I'm sorry. I just sent a new one in. On 14.
No,
13,
we're on 12.
12, on 12, yes, approve that. It's very exciting. This is a new co-op that is being, it's an old co-op, that's an old building, and it is having the, it is now being built. And it is an addition to a co-op through Section 37. It's the first one, and it's very exciting. And we are designating this beautiful heritage building that is part of the co-op fronting Queen Street. So yes, I'm moving that recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. So on the staff recommendations, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 25.13, non-residential residential demolition application 72 Ashdale Avenue. I don't have any deputants on that. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Fletcher.
I did send a motion in. I'm
there
sorry
we go,
about
and we've got it.
That's to defer it to the next meeting, please. Thank you. That's deferred till June.
Okay, so on the motion to defer that one
Thank
till
you.
June, all those in favor, opposed, carried.
Thank you. And sorry for the confusion. My apologies to you.
Oh, listen, the fact that we get through this agenda at all is amazing to me. This is just... okay, so we're now out of the timed items into the regular items. The next one I have deputants for is item TE 25.16, 208 Bloor Street West, official plan and zoning amendment application preliminary report. I have 3 deputants listed. First is Saul Wassermuhl.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Saul. Welcome. You're going to have 5 minutes to address the committee. You can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much to yourself and the committee. I'm here today on behalf of the East Annex Condominium Association, which represents about 500 residents in 4 condominium buildings adjacent to the 208 Bloor Street site. This application for rezoning an OPA is substantive and problematic in our opinion. It is for a tall tower on a 13-meter wide site, lot line to lot line, with flanking full-height blank walls. A pattern which may result in a series of unrelenting, abutting tall towers with no sky view or light penetration from Bloor Street. The application for rezoning an OPA was made on March 12th. The proposal was not even posted online for the public review until mid-April. The proponent held a brief presentation of this proposal on April 26th, EACA wrote to the local councillor, Councillor Layton, on May 5th, as well as to the City Planning Department, listing a series of very significant issues and concerns. Rather than allowing for some time to mediate between the various stakeholders involved, we are here a mere 2 months after the application being rushed into a virtual public meeting where there really is no real opportunity for discussion and mediation. Specifically, EACA is not anti-development. We are concerned that the stakeholders be given sufficient time and opportunity to consider and deal with the substantive issues on this application to allow for a solution which will define this important area for a generation. We'll leave it to council to decide whether it's a deferment or whether the issue of timing is addressed with. I leave it to Councillor Layton for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Saul? Seeing none. Saul, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today. Next, I have listed Brian Golden.
To the chair, Brian, your line is currently unmuted. Please speak when ready. To the chair, Brian has disconnected from the meeting.
Okay.
His phone line has disconnected from the meeting. However, Brian has logged into this meeting on WebEx and he has been provided with audio panels. Brian, if you just hit connect at the bottom of your panels, you should be able to connect and speak to the committee. To the chair, if you will allow me to connect directly with the speaker, I can assist them in troubleshooting.
Okay, so should we move on then to our next deputant while you're doing that?
Yes, however, deputants Denise Keefe and Julene Merchant are currently not connected.
Oh dear. Oh, okay, why don't we just everyone chill for a minute while the IT staff try to resolve this. I don't know if chill is in the procedures bylaw. I don't think it is.
Recess.
I don't think we need a formal recess. This will just be a minute. Yeah.
To the chair, I was able to connect with the speaker. I am now calling them into the meeting. This will just take about a moment. Thank you. Brian is now connected to the meeting. Brian, I am unmuting your phone line.
Great, thank you, and sorry for the disconnection earlier. I won't take the full 5 minutes. I would like to follow up with the comments of Saul Wassermel. I am a board member of 206 Bloor Street West. We have very similar concerns as those articulated by Saul. One relates to how quickly the process has moved, which seems to be unusual for the city. We have not had sufficient consultation with our 500 plus members and the developer. We have very serious concerns about the tunneling in the city, about the likely wind effects, the shading, and the traffic in a very congested area. We know that there have been serious and near serious bike lane accidents with traffic coming onto Bloor Street. It would be a very concentrated area, and we would ask that this process be slowed down so we can have sufficient consultation with the developer and the city. Again, I would reiterate the concerns that Saul Wassermel made on behalf of our association of 500 members. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions for Brian? No, Brian, appreciate you joining us today. To the IT staff, have we got any of the other deputies connected yet?
To the chair, we do not.
Okay. I'm afraid that I can't wait any longer. We're now completed the list of deputies on this item. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none.
Just very quickly. This is a preliminary report that is just authorizing staff to undertake a public meeting, correct?
That's correct.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Now, if we didn't take this next step, this doesn't preclude the developer from engaging with the residents, including the EACA, about the development proposal. It doesn't preclude that, right?
That's correct.
How many, out of curiosity, and maybe the clerk can answer, how many preliminary reports are deferred annually? I think I can count them on one hand in the time I've been a city councilor.
Through the chair, it is very rare for a preliminary report to be deferred. I can only think of, a handful in my career with the city.
Yeah. So it's been some time since the developer submitted their plans and they were deemed complete. If we were to defer a preliminary report, that would mean deferring a public meeting, which could be seen as a delay tactic and ensure the developer appealed to the board for a no decision, correct?
I'm not sure about the interpretation, but we wouldn't want to delay the community consultation. And although theoretically we could continue with community consultation even without a preliminary report being adopted by community council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions of staff? Councillor Lake.
Yes, thank you. I'll move the staff recommendations, and with the deepest respect to the community association who's present here today, a deferral of preliminary reports is incredibly rare and often happens at the most unique sets of circumstances. In my opinion, while it's good to engage the developer early with neighbors that are obvious stakeholders to try to start to address their concerns, it's not until the official notice goes out that we really get a full appreciation for the stakeholders that will eventually voice an interest. So if decisions are made without engaging those individuals who see themselves as local stakeholders, but we haven't had the opportunity to notify them of the application, it often involves us taking a bit of a step backwards once we've taken some steps forwards. So I would suggest that we continue the dialogue. The EACA continues the dialogue with the developer. The city will continue reviewing the application and sending our comments. But as we move forward, this doesn't rush the process at all. There are still many months of negotiations ahead, but I wouldn't want to give the developer any reason to take this decision out of local hands and walk it up to the local planning appeal tribunal. I also need to, as the local councillor, need to have some assurance that the right people, that all of the right people are at the table. That's not to say that the EACA don't obviously have a major voice, as this is a development, a very large development in between two members' buildings, or beside and in between. It's sometimes there are other stakeholders that come out of the woodwork that are only identified through a public notice period. I don't believe that this advances it any further along that it hasn't otherwise been advanced from the submission of the application. And therefore, I think we should proceed to the public meeting with the understanding that there's still a long road ahead. There's still more public meetings ahead, as long as this development and this developer decides to address some of the issues with the development as they're seen by the city and the community. Thank you very much.
I just have a question of the mover there, please, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Yeah, Councillor Layton, I'm just establishing that one of the reasons of your concern is that when the application gets filed with city planning, the clock starts ticking on when it has to be dealt with. That's what I heard you say. So to defer that may interfere with the natural progress of the application. And you've said that developer might end up going to the LPAT because it actually wasn't dealt with through the community meeting. Is that I hear that's a concern. I would concur with that.
I don't want to give another reason to go to the LPAT. There may be other circumstances, and yes, we have had a handful of them under different circumstances of a preliminary report being deferred. But I don't want to give this developer any excuse to go to the LPAT. We just went through an LPAT with the property at 208 or 210 right next door that we're waiting on a decision from. So we need to have the public meeting because we need to continue the negotiations to see how far we can push this developer in addressing some of the shortcomings of the application.
So you don't want timing to be a factor for the LPAT. That's what I'm hearing.
I just don't want to give them that excuse. No.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm happy to support you for that. Yes.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none. On the item then, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Next is item TE 25.18, Bloor Yorkville Area City Initiated Secondary Plan Status Update. Are there any questions of staff? No? Councillor Layton, if I could remind you, if you feel like moving this item, could you also move the supplementary, which is just a motion?
Yes, so yeah. I will move, I have a motion.
Okay.
And that's that Toronto and East York Community Council requests the Senior Planner, Heritage Planning, or Design Planning to give consideration to the area of Ramsden Park as part of the Cultural Heritage Resource Assessment for the area. I'd like to move this, the recommendations in the supplemental report as well. And with the thanks from the deepest part of my heart, thank you for advancing this a tiny bit faster than it was laid out in the first strategy. The original draft of this secondary plan was completed about 10 years ago by the community, who paid for consultants to bring it forward. I'm sure Councillor Wong-Tam remembers it well. It then was set aside for us to finalize TO Core, and then was set aside because there are just so many darn applications in the Yorkville neighborhood that our city staff didn't have time to put to it. Through all of this, the community had faith that we would one day complete it, and then the update was it would be done the first the round after the next election. And so in some dialogue with staff, we realized, you know what, we'll get it done and get that consultation done. We will work with them to help advance that as fast as we can. And they have said they could bring it forward a little bit faster than that. That was previously outlined. And from the deepest part of my heart, a huge thanks. I threw in the Ramsden, just consideration for Ramsden Park as part of the cultural significance, just because of its role in the community as a cultural space, but also as creating the literal building blocks for the community. And this has been voiced by local neighbors. They would like to see it included. I wanted to put it back in staff's hands to say, you figure out how you want to include it the best you can. Then I'm happy to leave it there with them, but I'm very, very happy to see this moving forward at a slightly faster pace than what was initially proposed in the report, and I'm sure my community is as well.
Okay, on the main report with Councillor Layton's motion, all those in favor, opposed, carried. On the motion to receive the supplemental, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Next, we are at item TE 25.21, improve safety for cyclists and pedestrians, Dufferin Street. I have 3 deputants listed. First is Vanessa Gentili. Vanessa?
Hello?
Hi, Vanessa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I can hear you loud and clear. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to address the committee. You can start as soon as you're ready.
All right. Good afternoon, Toronto East York Community Council members. My name is Vanessa Gentili. I'm 24 years old, and on December 2nd, 2020, my dear classmate at the Ryerson School of Journalism, former roommate and best friend, was killed as she was cycling home on Dufferin Street. I'm told we have 5 minutes to speak today, and I can tell you with all certainty that there will never be enough time to speak about my dear best friend, Alex. Her life was infinite. I awakened most mornings to night terrors, dreaming of saving her, pushing all the cars around her away, letting her live because Alex Amaro had the most life to live out of anyone I have ever known. I, among so many others of her dear friends and family, are left to deal with this unimaginable amount of grief for the rest of our lives. This spring seems to be the most haunting for many of us. You may not know, but Alex was a florist. She created physical manifestations of her internal and external beauty. Like our dear friend Maggie McIntosh said, she planted flowers in everyone's minds. Something you may not know was Dufferin Mall was one of her most treasured places. She would often be alone, sailing through the aisles of Walmart, envisioning all the ways she could create and grow her life, all the ways it could possibly go. Possibilities. And I picture her on that Tuesday doing just that. Her possessions she was carrying home were some hangers, a couple of chocolate bars, and an extension cord for her Charlie Brown light Christmas tree. Alex was home for so many of us. And all she was trying to do was come home. We lost our homes that day, and Alex was robbed of her life. Dufferin Street is a mix of low-rise residential homes, but includes commercial uses at major intersections. A mall for people to buy groceries and get their necessities and support local business. It is also comprised of numerous schools, parks, and community centers. The route she took on that horrific day was a route I took with her so many times, it is unsettling. We often did make that turn onto Sylvan because Dufferin Street is not only narrow, but has 4 car lanes and no protection for cyclists. I visit as often as I can bear it to bring her ghost bike flowers, to clean any old candles, to make it even a fraction of how beautiful she was to all of us. And yet I continue to feel frustration. The road is a highway despite it being a 40-kilometer-per-hour area. The reckless driving and speeding is the norm. I'm often made to feel unsafe even crossing the road on foot. Almost rammed myself many of times, I feel tears warming my face. This grief was avoidable for all of us, but knowing Alex, she would want us to focus on the present and what can be done now. According to the 2016 neighborhood profile, at least 12% of residents in Dufferin Grove reported commuting by bike to work, which is 4 times the city average. Since February 2021, police surveillance around Dufferin, where Alex's life was stolen, there have been at least 133 tickets given out for speeding and reckless driving. That number grows every day. On one hand, I am grateful for this action. On the other hand, I'm overtly frustrated because so much more must clearly be done. Councillors, I'm asking you today to consider the Lindsay Signal Survey that will be voted on in June. If that connection is made for cyclists going north and south, people will be provided with a safe way to get home. How do you want to arrive home today? The answer is surely safely. No matter if you drive, cycle, walk, TTC, we all just want to arrive home safely. Like I said, Alex for me and for the plethora of others was the epitome of home. She was warm sunlight hugging at your skin. She was sly smirks across the table. She was the flower she so often left me and so many others throughout the years. She was a hearty stew after a cold night, Motown music and eclectic pottery that dressed our old apartment. She was a smile, a confidant, and Alex was my protector. Alex often told me friendship is not a transaction. It was something we joked about when getting each other's tabs at Ronnie's, our favorite bar in Kensington, but she meant it in a greater sense. And for this, I will forever fight for my best friend and the rights of cyclists and pedestrians in the city. Future friends, sisters, brothers, parents, children will directly be saved from this connection. Councillors, I thank you for this time and invite you to find sunlight in every day.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Vanessa? Vanessa, thank you for sharing that. That was very moving. Next, I have Justine Nira Ariza. Justine?
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you very well, thank you. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to address the committee. You can start as soon as you're ready.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Gord-Perks, and thank you to the Toronto and East York Community City Councillor for welcoming me to share my thoughts with you today. My name is Justine Nida. I'm a constituent in Ward 9, a cyclist, and a person that believes in a greener future for our planet. And most importantly, I believe in the safety for environmentally friendly commuters and vulnerable residents, such as pedestrians. I am here to express my support of this report and recommendations found within. My best friend, Alexandra Amaro, was struck by 2 cars on December 2nd, 2020, and pronounced dead right on the scene at Dufferin and Sylvan. But I'm not here just for her. I am here because I am calling out to increase safety for cyclists, pedestrians on a street that is an artery for the city. I would like to take a second to thank City Councillor Anna Bylaw for the continuous support and advocacy in this report, because Vision Zero Road Safety Plan has not been enough. Dufferin Street connects communities across the city, and between College and Dufferin hosts a large family community with its community center, skating rink, and a large green space for my neighbors and community. It is no doubt that the strip of Dufferin between Bloor and College is treated as a racetrack, when it really truly is a street with a 40-kilometer speed limit. I call on the committee to carefully acknowledge and assess the data that will be submitted and voted on June 24th, 2021, that reviews traffic control signals at the following 3 locations: at Lindsay Avenue / Sylvan Avenue on Dufferin Street, at Geary Avenue, and at Goodwood Avenue and Clover Lawn. I would like to highlight the importance of approving installation of the one at Lindsay and Sylvan. As previously mentioned, this is a high traffic area for families, pedestrians, and cyclists. This area connects 2 parallel running bike lanes to Dufferin Street, yet have no point of connection. Sylvan, being a small side street, is often the safest for cyclists to take, and even at that, it is far too risky. As mentioned on the report and approved on April 7, 2021, proposed automated speed enforcement cameras along Dufferin Street between College and Bloor Street should remain. Speed control is needed, not just for the riders on the street, but for the folks on the sidewalk. Dufferin is a 4-lane road with a sidewalk that is barely safe for 2 pedestrians to walk comfortably on. While visiting the crash site, it is clear that these sidewalks are not safe for pedestrians, let alone for cyclists to ride. Cars, including buses, are often driving too close and too fast. I see moms and parents hug their kids tightly while walking on the side furthest from the edge of the sidewalk for safety. And all I can think about is Karen, George, and Becca, the 3 other members of a beautiful family of 4 whose hearts lay broken. The sight of their beloved Alex is not just heartbreaking to visit because of the connotation it carries, but because while standing there, trying to feel as close to her as we possibly can, we all shake for our own safety. The city is continuously building and planning for infrastructures that work in favor of drivers, but this city needs to start considering the safety and remaining of its citizens. We have seen before our eyes how quick we can set up systems that protect sidewalks and reserve spaces on roads for individuals to enjoy and feel safe in with Cafe TO. Investing in safety for cyclists and pedestrians only makes sense if we want to meet the goal of eliminating fatal traffic collisions. Thank you for your time today. It is time to put a stop to senseless death of sustainable environmental friendly transportation soon. Alex and fellow Toronto pedestrians and cyclists deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Justine. Are there any questions for Justine? No? Justine, thank you so much for sharing that with us today. The next deputant I have is Mark Savick.
Hi there, City Council. Can you hear me all right?
Hi, Mark. Yes, unfortunately, you've only got Toronto East York Community Council.
Oh, sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Even better, though.
I'm just playing. So, Mark, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to share your thoughts. You can start anytime you're ready.
Thank you. I'll begin. Hi, East York Council. My name is Mark Savick. I'm a resident of Ward 4, Parkdale Hyde Park. I've been a bike activist since the start of the pandemic last summer, delivering to volunteer groceries to families suffering from food inequality, which the organization was located in Ward 9, Davenport, near Alex's home. I'd like to focus on some of the issues raised in the report today and my support for them on the biggest impact they would have, and as well, most likely from most difficult to least difficult. First, the bus priority transit route and shared bicycle lane. Speaking on behalf of all of Alex's family and friends, this is the most important issue to us. We can attempt to control the speed on Dufferin, but as long as it remains 4 permanent car lanes, no amount of enforcement will be enough, whether it be police officers, automatic red lights, speed traps, or even just a temporary bike lane. We need it to be reduced to 2 lanes. We really promote the expedition of this bus priority transit route to reduce the congestion, better reduce the speed for drivers, and to give citizens in Ward 9 a safer area to walk around, knowing that buses and bikes are prioritized. Citizens will need this connective artery with the Bloor bike lanes that City Council so graciously got installed last year during our first summer of the pandemic. On page 3, on the line, consider targeted and temporary measures. If the bus priority transit route won't have any expedition in this calendar year, a second recommendation is 5 kilometers of temporary pilot project bike lane from Rogers Road on Dufferin down to the south of Florence Lane on Dufferin. This would solve all issues mentioned in the report of our side street bike lanes that have been created on Dufferin that intersect and interweave with Dufferin but don't connect to another major artery. If we can get this 5 kilometers to connect Bloor to these lanes, it'll safely connect Toronto cyclists to the rest of our Toronto cycling routes and provide them a safer method to arrive home safely, as Alex was trying to. As well, most likely one of the easier solutions on this is a designation of a community safety zone, which there are already 5 on Dufferin, but one closer to Dufferin Grove Park, similarly at Dufferin and Sylvan, to get an automatic ticket camera installed. This isn't our favorite solution. These cameras are known to get graffitied or destroyed a little bit, as we've seen in some news stories, and are obviously only temporary as they move around. But for a short-term solution as well, this is something that we would also hold near and dear to our hearts to protect the children, citizens, and cyclists in this area, all in an aim to reduce the speed on Dufferin, as my friends mentioned earlier. I'll finish with noting that Alex Amaro was 700 meters away from her home on College Street when she was biking home. She stopped to do a legal left turn, as she should have, to go down on a safer side street, not knowing that actually biking down dangerous Dufferin Street might have been safer that day. She may be alive today if she decided to bike straight down Dufferin, but she did what she thought, and all cyclists think in the city is right, to protect yourselves and go down the quiet street. Sadly, the quiet street was the wrong option today, and I hope we can get your support in getting some expedited measures in connecting Toronto cycling arteries and protecting our Ward 9 residents. Thank you for your time today, Council, and have a good day.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any deputants or any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, Mark, thanks so much for agreeing to share your thinking with us today. That's all the deputants that I have listed. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none. Councillor Bylaw, go ahead.
Thank you. With regards to the community safety zone, can you confirm that last month at infrastructure committee, we did get the community safety zone between College and Bloor approved by Dufferin Grove? Hello?
Just give it a moment. We'll see what we can do in terms of finding the right staff.
All right, what was that question? Sorry.
Councillor Bylaw, could you ask the question again, please?
Yes, I just wanted if staff could confirm that the community safety zone between College and Bloor has been approved last month at infrastructure committee.
Not sure. As the only representative, well, I don't know if Sean Dillon or Vince is able to speak to that.
Sorry, Vince Lafretti here. I'm not sure if Sean wants to answer this question or not, but my understanding is yes, it was designated as a community safety zone in April.
Councillor Bylaw, does that satisfy you?
Okay. I don't know if there was any. I mean, can I understand which staff is here to answer to this report? Because this report is actually done by different people in the transportation, and I just want to make sure that I have the staff here. For example, is there anybody here that is able to respond on the dedicated bus lane?
This is Vince speaking. As far as I know, yes, we have staff from our traffic operations unit and Vision Zero also.
Okay. So can you, we had asked for an expedition and maybe even to see if there were sections or portions of the Dufferin corridor that could be expedited for this implementation of the bus lane. When are consultations starting on that? When are we going to start seeing that work?
Sorry, Councillor, it's Vince again. I believe we're
Test, test.
I bet Nahom is telling them to hang on a minute. He's speaking with AP.
Okay.
So they'll just.
Back on YouTube.
Hello, I can hear you
In case
now.
you're looking for that in case you're looking for confirmation.
Okay, members, I can hear you now, which I couldn't do for a while. My understanding is that somehow Councillor Bylaw and Sean Dillon broke the internet or something like that.
We are very powerful people, Gord.
Yeah. So I couldn't hear anything after Sean started answering Councillor Bylaw's questions. And I understand that, like, we just had a loud buzzing here in the room, and I understand that that was also the case on YouTube. So what I'm going to suggest, as painful as it might be, is that we go back to Councillor Bylaw and ask her to re-ask the questions of Mr. Dillon. The other thing that I would mention is that we have very little business left to do, and I can see on the clock that 12:30 is approaching. So being mindful of those two things, floor is over to you to ask questions of staff, Councillor Bylaw.
Thank you. And just in case this question wasn't captured by YouTube, Vince, can you confirm, as you did when I asked you just a few minutes ago, that we're starting the work and the consultation on the Dufferin bus priority lane this summer?
That's correct.
Okay. And Sean, can you confirm, and Vince, sorry, can you confirm as well that the Havelock, Bartlett bike lanes, a north-south connection with 3.5 kilometers that eventually can connect to Gladstone as well, is also the design is starting this summer as well?
Correct.
And the Lindsay street light is coming to June with full design already as part of that report. Is that correct, Sean?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. We will have a report in June for the signal evaluations for Dufferin.
Yeah. Are you attempting to get the report on the red light camera at Dufferin and College as well as part of that report?
I'd have to refer to Jeffrey Catlin on that issue, or maybe Vince knows.
Sorry, can you please repeat that?
The red light camera that we are looking into at College and Dufferin, what is that coming back?
I don't have the details for that. It would be Jeffrey Catlin that unfortunately is not with us, but that is something that I can look into and provide you with response with shortly.
Well, the general manager did provide the response when I had a meeting with her. I was just trying to get it confirmed by staff publicly. She did mention that it was they were attempting for June, if the latest July, but I wanted to get that confirmed by you. Okay, Mr. Chair, those were my questions.
Sorry to interrupt, Councillor. I do have confirmation now through the chair that yes, there will be a red light camera update in that report as well.
Okay.
My apologies for the delay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Are there any
it.
other questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Bylaw, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would like to start by thanking Vanessa, Justine, and Mark for joining us here today. I didn't have the opportunity to speak personally with Mark, but I have been in regular contact with Vanessa and Justine, who I know are in contact and are voicing what the family has been saying, what friends have been saying, and working with Barbara Gray, who has been involved directly on this issue, and my office. This is a tragic accident that happened on Dufferin, and this family and these friends, chose to honor Alex by ensuring that cycling infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure in our city was going to be improved. And for that, I think we are thankful, and I want to pass on my gratitude. There are several projects that some of them had started before this accident, but we really are trying to expedite it as soon as possible. As you heard, the first thing was really to have that area designated as a community safety zone to be able to have a speed enforcement camera, which will be going there at the end of the summer, installed, just because 11 and 14 Division have been working with and giving us report to my office, and the amount of tickets that have been issued in that stretch is just outrageous. And so we need that. We need some immediate action, but at the end of the day, we do need some long-term and strategic changes on the street. And as you know, we were looking into the dedicated bus lane. I have had asked staff through motions to expedite this work. Dufferin is it's a long, very long corridor, but we are looking into possibly even if we can break it down a bit and have certain sections installed sooner. That's the work that we're looking at right now. And so we are moving ahead on that. We are also moving ahead on creating that north-south cycling infrastructure that is going to be complementary to the dedicated bus lane on Dufferin, which is on Havelock and Bartlett as well. That work, that design work and consultation is also starting this summer. Next June, as you have heard, there'll be a report about a traffic light on Lindsay. And this is actually to connect cycling infrastructure that we already have on the east side of Dufferin and on the west side of Dufferin on Lindsay, but there's really no safe way to cross Dufferin. This is actually the case in two areas in my community. This is the first one we're recommending that a traffic light be installed. The other one we're looking at is the connection between Lappin and Hallam, which is also very dangerous. We do have cycling infrastructure on Lappin and Hallam, and we have no safe way for cyclists to cross Dufferin. Staff is also looking at that intersection as well. And we should be hearing from staff on a solution soon as well. So once again, I do want to thank the residents that have been working with me on this project, and thank staff to ensure that some of these issues, red light camera, speed enforcement camera, dedicated bus route, bike lanes, these infrastructure projects are expedited and are here for approval, but most importantly, ready for installation and installed as soon as possible.
Okay, anyone else who wishes to speak on the item? Seeing none, on the item then, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, members, I have 3 or 4 agenda management things that I need to do now, so if you'll just be patient with me, we're going to step through them one at a time. First, I need a motion to reconsider item 2550. Councillor Wong-Tam?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
So moved.
Opposed? Carried. Next, I need a motion to introduce items 5.5 and 5.6, which are an all-way stop at Oak Park and Westbrook and parking amendments on Shaw Street. Can I have a motion? All those in favor, opposed, carried. I have another piece that needs to be introduced. However, I understand that Councillor Bradford will have an interest on this. It's regarding regarding 1327 to 1331 Queen Street East, ensuring pedestrian safety and accountability. Councillor Bradford.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd like to declare an interest on this file. My partner is a planner on this file, so if I could just recuse myself from this.
Okay, if you could just turn your camera
I've submitted the paperwork to clerks as well.
Thank you. If you could turn your camera off for a moment. Okay. Can I have a motion to introduce this item? Councillor Fletcher. All those in favor?
So moved. Thank you.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Councillor Bradford, you're welcome to rejoin us. There he is. Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right. So members, with all of that done, we have 4 or 5 items left. One of them has 2 deputants. It's my view we could be done it all in 15 or 20 minutes, but that means that I'm going to need a motion to extend to complete. Can I have a motion to extend to complete? Councillor Cressy. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay. We're rolling. The next item on the agenda is item 2523, accessible loading zone, Rushbrook Avenue. I held this for Councillor Fletcher earlier in the meeting. Councillor Fletcher, how would you like to proceed?
I'm sorry, I'd just like to defer that to the next meeting.
Okay. We have a motion to defer that to the June meeting. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Next is item TE 25.34, and I believe we have 2 deputants on that item. First, Priscilla Pacheco.
Hi there.
Hi, Priscilla. I can hear you great. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to address the committee. Please start as soon as you're ready.
Amazing. Well, good afternoon, Chair and Council members. I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak to you as residents of 45 Eversfield Road and my neighbors at 47 and 43. There is a proposed accessibility spot in front of our house that raises a few concerns, and we are asking for consideration to have it moved to 49 Eversfield Road. I would like to first point out, as it is important to note, that an identical request was made by the same applicant at 22 Eversfield 4 years ago. This was denied by the City of Toronto due to the same issues we will be discussing today. This is also on public record. Nothing has changed to date. Furthermore, several years ago, an accessibility space was placed at 49 Eversfield Road, which is also on a diagonal angle to the applicant's house. We ask you today to consider the spot for installation. I will now address quickly some of our concerns. Placing signage poles in front of our houses, 45 and 47, is a safety issue. We have a low elevated lawn between us. Children and animals tend to hop on and walk across the 1-foot retaining wall and jumping off, which is unpreventable. I am personally concerned for my own young children and passerbys with the risk of injury here. Next, parking is very scarce. Within 5 homes adjacent to me, as well as directly in front of me, there are 6 permit holders and counting. It is typical to park on other streets for overnight due to our front area legally measuring for only 2 spots. As such, it is very common for 3 vehicles to park here in front of our house. In addition, guests of Vesio Funeral Home at the end of Eversfield Road, which is a short street, also crowds the streets, making it more difficult. They do have parking for guests at a back laneway, but most guests do use Eversfield as it is more convenient. The property owned by the applicant already has an existing driveway in addition to a single-car garage with open access to the street. The closest and most easily accessible parking, if mobility is an issue, is their own driveway. Some of our neighbors with multiple permits, unfortunately, do not have this same privilege. As mentioned earlier, our neighbors and I are asking for consideration of the requested spot to be moved from 45 and 47 to 49 Eversfield Road, the next house over. There is a long, over 6-foot tall fence that runs alongside this property. Adding signage poles here disallows anyone from going behind them, as it would be physically impossible. This stretch accommodates 4 vehicles, and all the residents at 49, because it is multiple tenants, do not use street permits. Rather, they utilize their large adjacent parking pad. With regards to the applicant, this space is only a couple of feet in distance and nearly identical of a diagonal angle to them as it is to 45 and 47 Eversfield. I submitted an image that I hope that you all have on hand that illustrates this exact distance from the viewpoint of 20 Eversfield, which is in front of me, and they are the neighbors of the applicants. It is also known to all the from all the neighbors that the applicant's daughter is the one who utilizes the accessibility pass and parks here at 49 Eversfield Road as well. When parking is very, very limited, she has no mobility issues to park anywhere on the street, which can be very far away from their home. Sadly, we have all witnessed as well that the applicant moves their primary non-accessible car from their driveway, which is right there at their house, to save her a spot, just so she can get closer to home. And all of our witnesses see this on a daily occurrence. Lastly, my father, a senior homeowner of 45 Eversfield Road for over 35 years, has been offered an accessible pass by his medical doctor, and he has declined it over and over again just to help our neighbors to secure better parking. That's how frustrating parking is and how limited it is on our street. We hope you can see our concerns are just, and the reconsideration is very minor to move the accessible spot to 49 Eversfield. It's
Priscilla,
fair,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Priscilla, I'm sorry to interrupt. That completes your 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you for your time. I hope you see this as fair. Thank you.
Okay then, thank you. Are there any questions for Priscilla? No? Thank you very much for having joined us today. The next deputant I have is Avon Harris.
The chair, Avon Harris, is connected to the meeting and their phone line is unmuted, so they should now be able to speak.
Hello, Avon, can you hear us?
Avon Harris, this is home with the city clerk's office. Can you hear us?
I can, yes.
Hi, Avon. Welcome. So this is your opportunity to make a deputation to us. I'll give you 5 minutes. You can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. My name is Avon Harris, and I live at 43 Eversfield. And I am here today to bring to your attention a very poignant issue in regarding our street and street parking. I recognize the need for a disability parking, but an issue is the question of the location where the proposed mark is to put the signage. I would like to recommend that the parking sign, the disability parking sign, be put at Eversfield, based on at 49 Eversfield, based on the location, the accessibility, the ability to provide adequate parking that will not be taken away if it is placed at 49. We recognize that our street is heavily populated by seniors. I'm a senior myself, with the possibility of using this accessible parking. The other issue that is very poignant here is Our street is a short one, starting from Boone to Dufferin, going east. And as mentioned before, we have a funeral home as a neighbor, and the parking is often used by mourners going to the funeral home. That really eliminates the amount of parking space that we have. Additionally, some of the homes on our street don't have a driveway. And the location tend to encumber the front lawn area, which is probably about 2 to 3 feet high. That is often used by children, and with a sign in that area would really encumber how the space can be used both for our seniors, both for our children, and just the general public. And the parking spot is more accessible if it is at 49, which is starting at Boone, coming east with a very high fence that will eliminate some of these concerns that I have. In closing, I want to say that it is equity. How do we provide a disability parking permit and buttress that with the need for the rest of the community to use the space adequately? Parking is a very important issue. The space is the space that we have, and we want to make sure that we can use it to the best of our ability. And if the parking disability sign is at the far end, which is the right end of where I live, that would allow for only one space to be eliminated, or maybe two. But if the signage is put where it is proposed, that would eliminate possibly 3 spaces. So in fairness and equity, we're looking to see if this can be really come down to a matter of equity.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Yvonne? Seeing none, are there any questions of staff? Okay. Oh. One moment, please, everybody. Okay. Seeing no questions of staff, I'll move the item. All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Bylaw, did you, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is actually the motion in response to the request that you heard from the deputants. I looked into this matter, and that there is merit in moving the recommended location of the disabled parking spots. That's my amendment.
Okay, so we'll take the amendment and the item together. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Let's just see. Okay, that takes us to item TE 2550. Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, I do have a motion to amend the recommendation in the letter. If the staff can please put that on the screen. There was just an error with the name of the street, so we're swapping out the name of the streets. It's for part 4 of the recommendations.
Just one moment, please. Okay, so there you have the amendment in front of you. So all those in favor, opposed, carried. Next, we have TE 25.55, all-way stop at the intersection of Oak Park and Westbrook Avenue. Give me 1 second. Councillor Bradford. Councillor Bradford, this is on item 5.5, your letter regarding the all-way stop at Oak Park.
Yep, thank you. Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter, please.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Next, I have 2556, Parking amendments, Shaw Street. Councillor Cressy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Councillor Bradford, if you could now turn off your camera, I have to consider the item you declared an interest on. Item TE 25.57, 1327 to 1331 Queen Street East, ensuring pedestrian safety and accessibility. Councillor Fletcher.
Sorry, pardon me?
So the letter that you sent on 1327 to 1331
Yes, I'm moving
Queen.
that. Thank you, and thank the staff for getting on that really quickly. The sidewalk building's a bit too high. Now we have to figure out what to do about the sidewalk. So it's going to be very important to have this back. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Councillor Bradford, you're welcome to rejoin us now. And I think that just leaves us the bills, right?
You know what? No, we should have done a recorded vote. I'm sorry, I got distracted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually-
Councillor Bradford, could you leave again? We have to do a recorded vote. I'm a terrible chair. I'm a sloppy chair. I'm a chair who forgets the rules. So, quick motion to reconsider. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Now, if we could do a recorded vote on the item, all those in favor. Councillor Fletcher, it's your item, so you're probably in favor. Can you hear me, Councillor Fletcher? Have they lost us again? Can anyone hear me? Councillor Layton can hear me. 1 second, please.
We can hear you.
No, she's talking on the phone.
Good. All right. Perfect. Thanks. Bye. Gotta go. Bye. Hi, Gord. Yes. Hi. Hi.
Okay, there, we can hear you. Okay, we're doing a recorded vote on your end.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, recorded vote. Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Bylaw. Councillor Matlow, are you not in favor? No? Can you hear me, Councillor Matlow? Councillor Matlow.
My hand's up, yes.
Oh, okay, I have a lag with you. Councillor Cressy, Councillor Layton, Councillor Wong-Tam, you're in favor? Okay.
In favor.
And the chair's in favor, so that's all members who are present. Now we can have Councillor Bradford back.
Mr. Chair, on a point of order, we still need to deal with 25.3. This is the matter at 111 River Street.
Oh, I am so sorry, Councillor Wong-Tam. I was excited because I saw the finish line. Okay, so we had all the deputants and you were going to do some work. Do we have the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, we'll put it
I
up.
believe so. If the clerk can please put that on the screen. The amendment is to refer this item to City Council without recommendations at this time, but to have the Chief Planner in consultation with Heritage Planning staff to evaluate the communications that came in and to report directly to the June meeting of City Council with a supplementary report, and if they have any further recommendations to provide at that time. Thank you very much.
Okay, all those in favor, opposed, carried. So I think that takes us to the bills, am I right?
It does.
Okay.
Just need a minute to put the motions up.
Okay, yeah, 1 second. Okay, so I move that the Toronto East York Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw bills 394 to 401, 403 to 406, and 410 to 418, prepared for the May 19, 2021 meeting 25 of the Community Council. All those in favor?
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on.
Oh,
1 second. I am sorry. Just a minute.
this one's not my fault. I
Lori,
swear.
what did you refresh? Because Gina wrote an urgent message saying she had to withdraw both forums. Did you just refresh? Literally. Okay, then we're good.
Okay, so all those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, and next? The Toronto East York Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Toronto East York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 25 on May 19th, 2021. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Members, that concludes our business today. We'll see you soon. Stay healthy.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair. Thanks to the staff. Enjoy your afternoon.
Take care.